Shalom Uvracha, Rabbi Manny, speaking on behalf of El Centro de Estudios Judíos Torat Emet. This week we are launching a new initiative. Due to popular request, we've decided to tape and to transmit some commentaries on the Perashat Shabbat, on the weekly Torah portion, in English. This week will be the beginning of such. It will be a short sermon, a short idea regarding the portion of the week and how it relates to our times. We really hope that you enjoy it, and we hope that our presentations in English are well received. Thank you very much for joining us. This week is Perashat Miketz, and it is also Shabbat Chanuca. So it's my pleasure to be with you and to launch this as a Chanuca gift, and we hope that it is pleasant for you. Perashat Miketz has many different ideas. I want to concentrate on just one of those. In the beginning of the parasha, we see the story where Joseph is taken out of the dungeon of Pharaoh, taken out of the prison, due to the fact that the wine steward, who we had been introduced to earlier, remembered him at the point when Pharaoh had had some disturbing dreams, remembered Joseph, and told Pharaoh, that he had met this Jewish young man in the prison, and that he had interpreted his dreams, and in fact the dreams had come true according to their interpretation, and perhaps he could be of service to Pharaoh. Pharaoh, of course, then demands that Joseph be removed from the prison and be prepared and be brought before him, and of course Joseph offers to help with interpretation and says that only God really interprets the language of dreams. The Gaon of Vilna points out a striking similarity between the text that is used in this Torah portion in the way that Pharaoh removed Joseph and prepared Joseph for the presentation to come into the presence of Pharaoh, to the language or the text that is in the Megillat Esther, in the book of Esther, specifically in the section where Mordechai is dressed in the royal clothing of the king, put on a horse, and Haman, the evil counselor of King Achashverosh, is told to do all of these things for Mordechai. I find it very interesting that the text is so similar, as pointed out by the Vilna Gaon, that there has to be some sort of a similarity. And I want to share with you what I believe that is, and the way that it is confirmed, in my opinion, during the rest of the parasha. Specifically, we see that Joseph is taken out of the dungeon, prepared, dressed in the fineries befitting to be presented in front of Pharaoh. He is wearing Egyptian clothing. He is shaved. He is prepared. He is perfumed. He has makeup. He does all of the things that are necessary in order to fit into the society of Egypt. After he interprets the dream of the Pharaoh, he begins to set up with the Pharaoh a system to save all of Egypt from the upcoming famine that is about to strike the land of Egypt. Joseph is a Jew who is living in an exile, has assimilated himself in that he's wearing the clothing of the place that he's living in, and he's doing everything he can to prosper that place that he's living in. He speaks Egyptian. He gives counsel to the Pharaoh. He contributes to the well-being of his society, and he takes a leadership role in developing that society. Similarly, Mordechai was a great Jew who remained loyal, just as Joseph remained loyal to the Jewish tradition, well within the exile. And Mordechai interprets, in an earlier part of the story of Esther, interprets a plot to kill the king Achashverosh. And he intervenes and does everything he can to save the king. He is then later, of course, lauded and rewarded by having his own worst enemy have to take him and lift him up, put on the clothing of royalty, and go around announcing him on the horse. Perhaps the Parsha is actually speaking to us, Perashat Miketz, is actually presenting to us some ideas about how to properly live as Jews within the exile. And we see that the brothers of Joseph, when they come into the land of Egypt, that they are gathered together and brought in front of Joseph, whom they believe is the viceroy, and he is the viceroy of Pharaoh, but they don't realize that it's actually their brother, because he's so integrated into the Egyptian society that they don't even recognize him anymore. How often does it happen that Jews are not recognized for who they are? I believe that many of my constituents who are Anusim, many Jews look at them and they don't realize that perhaps they're Jews. Perhaps it's the same story of Joseph, that they're living in the exile and their own brothers don't recognize them. And finally, when he announces who he is, one of the most emotional, beautiful scenes in the Torah occurs when the brothers are reunited in a loving way. May it be that way for all of us. And when they present themselves for that first time in front of Joseph, and Joseph begins to question them to see what exactly were their intentions, and they say to Joseph, yes, we are all the sons, we are all brothers, we are all the sons of the same father. Now, interestingly enough, many of our Torah commentators, the classical Torah commentators, point out that this statement, we are all brothers, we are all sons of the same father, was not only true for themselves, they were defending themselves and saying that they were all, yes, they were confirming that, yes, they were all brothers, but perhaps they didn't realize prophetically that they were also saying that Joseph was in fact also a brother of theirs and a son of the same father. Perhaps there's another way to understand that verse, and perhaps it relates to our earlier idea. Perhaps the proper means of understanding the way to live properly in the exile is exactly the line, exactly the verse that these prophetic brothers, the fathers of the children of Israel, the fathers of our entire nation, say in the first contact that they have with this representative who they think is a goy, who they think is a Gentile. And they say to him, we are all brothers, we are all sons of the same father. Maybe the message of the Torah, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is, maybe the message of the Torah is to have us understand that one of the messages that we are being brought into this exile to share with our hosts in every country that we live in is the message that all human beings are brothers and sisters, that all human beings are children of the same Father, our Father who is in heaven, Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father who created all of mankind, and that we're all brothers and sisters, and therefore, because we're all brothers and sisters, we should assist each other and help each other prosper. You know, they say that a rising tide lifts all boats. Perhaps the Jewish people are sent into the exile, just as Joseph was sent to Egypt, to save the country that he lives in and to contribute to the best of his ability to the prosperity, to the salvation, and to the well-being of every citizen of Egypt, just as we are commanded today to do so in every country that we live in. Just as Mordechai did everything he could as soon as he saw that there was a plot to murder the king, to kill the king, he did everything he could to intervene and to save the king in order to maintain the prosperity, the peace, and the well-being of the country that he lived in. We have a commandment in the book of Jeremiah to pray for the country that we live in. We see that Daniel the prophet also prayed for the country that we lived in, that he lived in. Perhaps Perashat Miketz, this first contact between the children of Israel, the sons of Israel, and the first thing that they say to this man who they believe is not their brother but representative of Pharaoh, the most powerful king of the non-Jewish world, is king. We're all sons of the same father. And then, of course, Joseph, as an example, who is contributing to his society and is maintaining his allegiance and his connection to the tradition, while at the same time donning Egyptian clothing, speaking to his fellow citizens in the Egyptian language, and doing everything he can to contribute to the well-being of his society. This Shabbat, we're celebrating Shabbat Chanuca, and it is our custom to light the Chanukia, to light the menorah in our homes, specifically to light them, according to the Ashkenazic tradition, in the window of our home, and according to the Sephardic tradition, right outside our doors, right across on the other side of the mezuzah, to light the Chanukia every single night, to light it specifically according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the code of Jewish law, to light the menorah at rush hour, at the time when the streets that surround us, in the villages and in the places that we live, to light the menorah. Right at sunset, or right as people are traveling to get home. Why? Because they'll see the menorah. And says our rabbis of blessed memory, Chazal say, that the reason that we do so is for Pirsume Nisa, to publicize and let people know that the miracle of Hanukkah occurred. But perhaps there's yet another message, which is very, very important, that is within this holiday and within the text of Perashat Miketz, which we usually, very, very, almost every year, read during Shabbat Chanuca. And that is that it is our job, as Jews who live in the exile, to share our light, not only with each other, not exclusively with Jews, but to share our light with our neighbors and those who directly live around us. In each town, in each place that we live, we light our Chanukia, we light our menorah in the window of our home, and we allow the light that is within us, within our homes, to be shared with those who we interact with. May it be God's will, as we live in all of the countries and in all of the places that we find ourselves, that we not choose a path of insularity, but rather that we take the advice of Mordechai, and that we take the advice of Joseph, and ultimately that we take the advice of the brothers of Joseph, that we are all sons of the same Father. All of us are children of Avinu Shebashamayim, of our Father who is in heaven, Jews and Gentiles alike. We must do everything possible to share our light with others, to celebrate in their successes, and to help promote the society that surrounds us. A rising tide lifts all boats, and I believe that Joseph knew very well that if he was put in that place at that time, and he had the abilities, that he had to do everything he could to contribute to the society that is around him. May it be God's will that we should be able to contribute and to bless those who are around us, and to allow those who are around us to bless us as well. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Urim Sameach. Thank you for joining us.